When I was here, I visited 3 of the crime scenes, but did not go inside. I did not go inside because those were actively being worked by our BCI agents. At that time, I got a briefing. Sheriff and I received a briefing from the agents who were working that particular house. But today, because it's no longer an active scene and we're no longer working it, I wanted to go inside. My prosecutor background indicated to me that I wanted to go inside and take a look. It's sort of like doing a frame for the picture. And it makes it much easier as we get additional facts as they come in and evidence as we come in, so that you can really understand what the scene looked like, and you just get a better understanding, frankly, of the case. It really gives you, I think, sort of a frame of reference for everything that you can put into that, the evidence we already have, the evidence that we're going to get in the future. Let me just say on a personal note, my experience today was no different than my experience in the past in going to a murder scene that's in a house, and you look around and you think just a few days ago there was a family living here, there were people living here, one case a teenager, others little children, and you see all the evidence, of course, of people living in a house. And so if we need to be reminded of the gravity of the situation, that just sort of brings it home. That we have 8 victims, 8 human beings whose lives have been snuffed out. Let me make a couple additional comments. First, as I have said before, I anticipate a lengthy investigation. The nature of a case where a body is found many times means that it's going to take a while. You have 8 bodies, you have 8 times the many different scenarios and possibilities. So I look for a lengthy investigation. Let me talk about, maybe to anticipate some of your questions, but we will be open. Sheriff will make a statement, and Sheriff and I will be open for questions. But let me just anticipate maybe some questions and talk about some of the rumors that have been printed in this country and in other countries. I do not intend to shoot down every single rumor. I do not intend to confirm in part or deny in part. Our priority is to get convictions. Not just arrests, but convictions. And when I look at this case, quite candidly, and when our assistant prosecutors look at this case, we look at the case as a case that eventually will have to be prosecuted in court. And so we are not going to do anything. Much as we would like to share information with you, much as we would like to share information with the public, we have no intention, absolutely no intention, of doing anything that can jeopardize this case. Not just to get an arrest, but also to ultimately get what everyone wants, and that is justice done and convictions, or a conviction. Let me maybe say it in a little different way. I assume that the person or the people who committed these murders are watching the news reports that are coming out of Pike County. I do not want to broadcast any information that would let them know details about this investigation, which would be helpful to them and which would hinder the disclosure, which would hinder our investigation. The same is true, frankly, for witnesses and people who might give us information who were not part of the murder. We do not want to, frankly, pollute their thinking or in any way give an indication of which way this investigation is going, which would in any way affect what they tell our investigators. We do not want to suggest the investigation is going in any particular direction, and that information which could, in fact, influence tips and information that we might receive. We do not want to give the killers or killer any indication of where this investigation is going or what information we have or what information we do not have. I would conclude by saying that we are encouraging people to continue to give us tips. We've received well over 300 tips. Again, that is 855-BCI-OHIO. 855-BCI-OHIO. Sheriff Reeder.
Hello and welcome. First and foremost, I want to send my thoughts and prayers not only out to the citizens of this county, but for the Rhoden family once again. I really want to stress that this is a lengthy and ongoing investigation. I now have assigned members of my staff to the investigation until its completion. I have additional units from other county sheriffs from as far away as Lake Erie to make sure that the people of this county are safe and that I have ample staffing in this county. I also want to caution you in that any information in this investigation, unless it comes from the Attorney General's office or myself, it should not be taken as verified from us in the course of this investigation. It's very lengthy. There's many crime scenes. There's many bodies. Folks, we've had a family that's lost 8 people in this county. And I would urge you to let us do our job. Let the tips come in. Every one of them will be checked out. I want to do this once, and I want to do it right. When we're done, I don't just want an arrest. I want it ready for prosecution. I have visited the crime scenes now, not only with BCI agents, but also prosecutors, FBI agents, and of course the Attorney General. This is something that's going to take a while. It's absolutely shocking, some of these scenes. It's not one that you can simply go in, process, collect the evidence, and call it a day. We are working around the clock, other than the short time that we take to get some rest, so that we can continue this investigation and see it to a close. I want to take this time to thank over 25 Ohio sheriffs for all the support they've sent to this county. There's been other police agencies, as far as Piketon and other police departments, that has immediately seen that we need help being a small county, a small agency, and has sent this help this way. I want to thank the public, the local public, for their support. All the people with the important tips that live in this county that may know something, that continue to call in and give us every lead possible. Again, it's a lengthy and ongoing investigation that we are working day by day, as many hours as we can other than the rest. Thank you.
Mike, I heard you say on the radio just a short time ago, it does not sound correct. When you were asked about the money that was reportedly found below the knees of Kenneth Rhoden, $1,000 in dollar bills, when you said it does not sound correct, are you talking about the whole report or just parts of the report? Or what can you tell us about what you mean by it does not sound correct?
Well, I think it was that question that illustrates why you really don't want to be in a position of confirming or denying anything, because then you get into, okay, something is, partially true, it's not true. You get into all that. So let me just say, we're just not going to comment on that. I'm just not going to comment on that at all. I don't think it would help in the investigation.
Mike, do you have any indication as to whether the killer or killers is from Pike County or from outside the area?
We are not closing any door about where that person is or making any assumption where they're from.
Autopsy results released yesterday said one of the victims was shot 9 times. What does that tell you?
Well, what does it tell me that the autopsy report says the victim was shot 9 times? It certainly is consistent with what we've been saying, that we're dealing with the cold-blooded murderers who calculated this, thought it out, planned it, and executed it.
But is a murderer trying to send a message with 9 shots?
I'm not going to get into the mind of the murderer at this point. I don't know.
Is that an automatic weapon?
Not going to comment on that.
Could you say who was shot 9 times?
No, I'm not going to comment on that.
We know there was marijuana found. Any indication of any other types of drugs?
I'm not going to comment on that either.
So is it possible for you to tell us the timeline who was shot first?
No.
How unlikely is it that only one person committed these crimes? I mean, with so many people in the house, you know, with one person, it seems like some of them might have been able to get away. How unlikely is
Well,
it?
we are not assuming it's one person. I mean, we're not assuming anything about the numbers. I think I've said that several times. You know, the numbers could be 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't know the numbers. You know, as more facts come in, some of the facts that are available to you, you can make educated guesses. But our job is not to make even educated guesses. Our job is to find out the truth. I mean, we're not only seeking convictions. I mean, ultimately, what we're about today, and for however long this takes, is to find the truth. I mean, the people of Pike County have the right, and the victims' families have the right to know the truth, and they have the right to know who did it, and they have the right to have these people brought to justice. And so that is our focus. It's a laser focus. That's what we care about.
How do you continue to address any safety concerns the residents have? We certainly, all as members of the media, have spoken with them. Some are truly concerned about their safety. How do you continue to reassure them or address that? Or
Sure, I'm going to let the sheriff answer that. I'll just to state maybe what's obvious. We have one family that's been targeted. No one else was hurt. 8 people of one family were injured, were killed. 8 people of one family were killed. So, you can extrapolate from that, but basically what we said the other day is we have no evidence that anybody else outside that family has a reason to concern. We've not seen anything that would indicate that. Sheriff?
Also, keep in mind, day to day, I have 13 road units available in this county. And since this tragic event, with the help of the sheriffs in Ohio, there's times that I have 10 times my staffing in this county. You've been out close to the Union Hill Road. You've seen that there's roadblocks. All scenes have been protected since this has happened by either my staff or out-of-county staff, and mostly out-of-county staff. We've made sure, with the help of Sheriff Frazier and Sheriff Wood in the scheduling, that we have additional units at every shift change. Most generally, we're having between 8 and 10 units that's out of county in this county, along with what's available day to day with what I provide this county. So to assure my county citizens that we are stepping it up to make sure everything is going to be okay, those sheriffs have come together, provided me any and all support that I've requested. I'm sure that the county citizens have seen the amount of extra patrol, extra cruisers that are in this county and that are out and about. I need to rest. However, I have been out, not only being actively involved in this investigation, but if there's a call that comes in that I'm made aware of at any seriousness at all, I make myself available to that as well. But with working with other county sheriffs, I assure you that we have more manpower now than we've ever had in this county. And I continue to stress that it'll be that way for a while.
Sheriff, can you talk about possible security measures at the family's funeral?
I'm going to be speaking with the family, myself and the Attorney General. I'm going to reach out to them to see what measures we need to take. and I will make anything available that I can to them.
Can you update us on how the family is doing? You spoken to them recently?
I'm not going to speak on how the family's doing. I'm trying to respect the family in this time of need. They've lost 8 members of their family, okay? And it's very important to me that we show respect for them in their time of mourning. This is something that's been devastating, not only this county, but also that family. I couldn't imagine being in their shoes right now, okay? I will reach out to them, myself and the Attorney General, and I will make available to them exactly what they need.
Mike, have you learned from the autopsy, because you guys said, I think it was 32 wounds to the 8 people who were killed. Have you learned from the autopsy the type of weapon you just don't want to say? Or what have you learned?
I'm just not going to comment. There was a release, of course, of a summary of the autopsy. Autopsies always provide information. They are always helpful. But I'm not going to get into, what we think is relevant, what we think is helpful, or what the autopsy said beyond what the coroner released.
Type of bullet?
General,
not going to do it.
General, with these types of mass shootings, we've grown accustomed to, unfortunately, when they happen, there's usually an arrest within a day or two. Given that we're 6 or 7 days into this, how different is this investigation compared to other criminal investigations?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. And, when we normally use the term mass shooting, I think what we think of is a horrible tragedy. Someone walks in, they kill a bunch of people in a movie theater, they do it at a school. To me, you can call this whatever it is, or whatever term you want to use, but this is not that type of situation. This is an old-fashioned, cold-blooded, calculated massacre of 8 human beings. You could have had something like this occur 50 years, 100 years ago, or yesterday. So it's just fundamental. You have to look at fundamentally different than we look at the horrible situation where we have a mass shooting at a school. In those cases, the person is usually caught right away. Sometimes the person commits suicide. I think we're better off to compare this to a calculated, well planned out murder. And that's how we are approaching it. Everything we see about this indicates that, and it puts it into a very, very different category. It puts it in the category of a planned out murder, in this case, numerous murders, and that's how we have to approach it. And the nature of these cases, at least in my own experience, has been that they take some time. It takes some time to put the pieces together. You come upon a body, or in this case, you come upon 8 bodies in 4 homes. Killers are long gone, and then you have to, it's the old-fashioned detective work. I mean, it's just what it really is. You just have to put this together one piece at a time. That's what the men and women who we have here at the command center are doing, and those who are out doing interviews. They're doing the old-fashioned police work that's always been done.
And Mike, can you confirm that this investigation is for Ohio or Kentucky only? Or are we looking East Coast, nationwide? What are we looking at here?
Well, I think a better way of looking at this is that we're going to follow the evidence, and we are following the evidence. We're going to follow the evidence wherever it leads, and whoever it points to. So, there's no boundaries here. There's no boundaries. I mean, we're fine whoever did this.
Are we getting any tips from?
We welcome tips from anywhere, but I'm not going to comment about about the tips. It's really something I don't think we should do.
The FBI and the
Okay, we'll go right here, and then we'll go over here.
Sorry. The FBI and the DEA are offering technical assistance at this point, correct?
We have been in contact with the DEA and FBI. Our office works with them many times daily. Through BCI, the Attorney General's office. They're great. We have a great working relationship with them. We were in touch with them, and they were in touch with us the first day, both the FBI and the DEA. They are providing some technical expertise, and that's what they're doing. We're not going to talk about exactly what they're doing, but it's a very, very close relationship we have with our federal partners, just as it's a very close relationship that we have with our county partners as well.
It's correct to say that the FBI and the DEA are involved in this investigation.
Exactly the way I said it. They are. We have reached out to them. They've reached out to us. They're providing technical expertise. We welcome that, and we're going to do whatever it takes. We're going to involve whoever we need to involve to get to the bottom of this. But that's basically what we do every day. I mean, what you see when we do cases in Ohio, and the Attorney General's office is involved in cases, is many times it's our federal partners, our state partner, ourselves, as well as our local county sheriffs or our chiefs of police. So this is normal operating procedure for the Attorney General's office.
Characterize the nature of the...
Matt, you wanted one over there, I'm sorry.
I did, that's okay. 2 questions. Is the FBI and DEA on the scene, number 1? Number 2, you have funerals and services beginning as early as tonight. Will there be extra security around there, given you haven't caught the killers?
I'll let the sheriff take the second one, but I'll take the first question. In any one moment, they may be here, or they may not be here. I mean, I can't tell you at this precise moment where they are not. Yes, they have been, and they will be, in the future. I mean, that's just the nature of how it works, and that's how we work with them. They need to be here sometimes they don't, and they're, as I said, providing a specialized expertise, equipment. So it's very helpful. Sheriff.
As far as the funerals, we'll provide what security measures are needed.
Sheriff, are you investigators in Pike County reviewing any possible similarities to an unsolved Scioto County had back in January? That's been a question that's been asked of us many times.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Can you let us know how the children are doing that were involved with this? Who they're being cared for by, what their status is?
I'm not going to release any information on the children. They're doing well, but as far as who has them, where they may be, I will not share that.
Are you in a position to say if you've developed a person of interest or a suspect at this point?
No, we're not going to tell you that. Just not going to do it.
Can you talk about how optimistic you're feeling at this point, based on the physical evidence you've been able to gather?
I missed the first part of the question. I'm sorry.
You could just characterize where your level of optimism is right now, based on the facts in front of you, the 60 interviews, the physical evidence you were or weren't able to gather. Where are investigators' mindsets as you move forward?
Well, I don't know if I can really answer that. We felt from very early on, I felt at least, that this is going to be a lengthy investigation. I think the nature of the crime indicates that. So, we are moving forward. We're doing the forensic work. As you know from yesterday's announcement, we sent additional pieces of evidence to our crime lab. That work is taking place. I mean, all the things, the processing the crime scene, everything is where it should be. But I'm not going to really comment about whether we're optimistic or pessimistic. We're not going to get into that. I think it's going to be a lengthy investigation, and I feel that we, in the end, will find who did this. I mean, my commitment to the people of Pike County and surrounding counties it remains the same. We will have people here on the ground until we find out who did this. We will follow this investigation wherever the facts take us. We are in. We're going to stay in. We'll put whatever resources are necessary to find these individuals or this individual.
Mike, you visited 4 crime scenes today. Are there 5 locations that are under investigation, or just 4?
Well, there's 4 places where bodies were found, and that's where I visited today. I visited 3 on Friday, but did not go in.
Yeah.
Today I went in, spent some time at each place, walking around with our investigators who were there to talk about exactly what we have found at each scene, and 4 scenes, and to talk, about other things connected with the case. I mean, we use this as an opportunity to take each scene at one at a time, and you get so much better feel for it. And it's really, like as I said, it's this frame that you can put the picture in later, because you gotta understand that. You have to see it. At least for me, I have to see it to really understand it.
But is there a 5th location? that is part of
We
the
did not visit a fifth place today. There's bodies only found in 4 places.
And can you tell us which victims were found in each of those locations, and maybe break that down?
In the middle.
I wouldn't just call you back.
General, would you characterize the person or persons responsible as professional killers?
I would describe these people as cold-blooded murderers. I would describe them as people who thought about what they were going to do. I would describe it as people who were ruthless, but I'm not going to go beyond that.
Can you characterize the nature of the marijuana grow operations and tell us which of the 3 that they were, which of the 3 properties they were found?
No, I'm not going to go into that. I mean, all we have confirmed is that when you look at it, it's clear it's not just someone growing marijuana in their backyard or in a few pots in their house. I mean, it's a commercial operation.
How many plants are we talking, or acres? Or?
I'm not going to go into that.
Can you discuss the possibility that that is one of the reasons this family might have been targeted?
Well, everyone can draw their own conclusions. I mean, this is one piece of evidence, but we have many pieces of evidence coming in. I think, again, it's a mistake, and I don't want to send the wrong signal to people, because there are people out there who have information, or think they may have information, and are now thinking about, gee, can I come forward with this information or not? I don't want to send them a signal that we're going one way in an investigation, and they say, oh, well, what I have can't be valuable. Well, that can't be useful. So it's a very delicate thing we're doing here, and I know it's hard to understand, but we're approaching this as prosecutors. I have prosecutors on the scene now who will eventually work with the county prosecuting attorney to try the case. So they're here now, and that's kind of how we approach things. You have to be there, you have to see it, you have to feel it, but we're looking down the road, and that's what the ultimate goal is: convictions and justice.
In your first interviews, you indicated that the killer or killers used the phrase well planned, and even went so far as to say they really took steps to do whatever they could to pivot the investigation. Now that the bond is closer, they spent many days in those crime scenes, make mistakes.
Well, I'm not going to talk about whether the killers in this case made mistakes. Most cases I've dealt with, there are mistakes made. No one executes anything perfectly. But I'm not going to reference this particular case. I'm just referencing what my experience has been in the past.
General, given the nature of this investigation, have you set aside a dollar amount yet? Have you created a budget for such a big ongoing investigation?
Well, this very well could be the question. The question, if you didn't hear, the question is, have we set aside a budget amount for this investigation? The answer is no. I mean, we're going to do what we have to do. This is priority number one. We've had other investigations that certainly have cost a lot of money. I think immediately comes to mind is the high-speed chase in Cleveland 3 years ago or so, where we had a lot of agents on for a long time just to try to dig out the facts. But no, this is a major commitment from the Attorney General's office. I mean, we do not have unlimited resources or unlimited people. But we surged in here the first day within hours after it happened. The crime scene people, we followed that very quickly with our intelligence unit. And we're going to, again, use whatever resources we have at BCI London or BCI Richfield or Bowling Green, and we'll do whatever it takes.
Mike, what is
but I can't really come up with a dollar figure.
5 days in, do you know how much you've spent?
No, I really don't. I mean, everybody who's here is being paid anyway, although I'm sure there's significant overtime already that has been incurred. I mean, whenever you have a crime scene, this crime scene, our people got there roughly around 10-something, 11 o'clock, and that crime scene, I believe, was closed out around 3 or 4 o'clock the next morning. So, I mean, once you get into a crime scene, you're into the crime scene, and that's what you have to do. So we're going to do what it takes.
Mike, what is the fifth location where a search warrant was served, and what is its connection?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment about that.
After marijuana, has the DEA or your local task force, is there an estimated value at this point?
I'm not going to go there as far as value or as far as plans. There was a reference in one media report about marijuana being found by the Attorney General's office in 2010 and 2012. That is true. That is correct. They were both found in remote locations. I can't tell you exactly where. It was clear what was happening in those locations. In 2012, it was 1,239 plants. In 2010, it was almost 23,000 plants. Both were in what I would call, for want of a better word, encampments, where people were basically in tents, who were living out there, and who were growing the marijuana. I'm not referencing this case. I'm just saying I know that's been reported. I want to confirm that and explain as much as I can to you about those two other incidents where we did basically our eradication team, I think, was who was involved with it with the sheriff's office.
Mike, could you characterize the presence of Mexican drug cartels?
No, I would not. I would not do that. I think those terms, that term is thrown around sometimes a little loosely. You know, I think that we have to be very, very careful when we label something a cartel or an organized group, unless we actually know what it is.
Your press release had that.
Yeah, our information was at the time. Our information was at the time is that we believed these were people from Mexico, and that they were involved in some sort of organized crime. So that's what the release said at the time. That's what we thought at the time. I'm not backing down from that. That's what we thought at the time.
Are you looking at any links to these homicides?
Well, I think one of the things that you always do is you go back. In any other things that have occurred, anything the sheriff has been involved with, anything the neighboring counties have been involved with, I mean, that's all part of discussion, just because that's good police work. You got to look at what's happened in the past and just try to figure out, is there any linkage? What's the significance? And it's no different than, any other very, very complicated murder investigation, in the sense that, you get a lot of facts and most of them, aren't particularly relevant, but you don't know that when you first get them in. You have to sort it out. All right, anybody else?
Do you have
One
any
last.
reason to believe that the family members may have felt fearful before this happened, or exhibited that, or put that out there?
I'm not going to comment on that. Thank you. Thank you all very much.